Hello, Matthew Welch, October 3rd, 2021. This presentation is going to be the replies to the Unit 2 case studies. For this, I have chosen case number 2 and case number 4. And I have the questions here. I'm going to read them. Then I also have the typed up script that I'm going to reference occasionally. First of all, let's start with case number 2. Case number 2 is about a 16-year-old female who is diagnosed with a deficiency of muscle glycogen phosphorylase. She is being evaluated by the doctor or the care provider, in this case that I will be, and asking some questions about this disease. The first question was that she's not sure she understands the issue, and could you explain how glycogen is normally used during exercise? First of all, I would let her know that she has a disease known as McArdle disease. This disease is caused by a deficiency in the glycogen phosphorylase enzyme. Typically, when the skeletal muscle demand for energy exceeds the energy available in our bloodstream, the skeletal muscle will go through a process where it breaks down stored energy called glycogen that's in that tissue and uses that for energy. In the case of this patient, that enzyme is not functioning properly to allow her skeletal muscle to do that, so she struggles to maintain the energy demands of her skeletal muscle when exercising. In a healthy person, they would be able to meet these demands and continue exercising. However, in an unhealthy, or in a McArdle's disease, or in her case, it would get to the point where the skeletal muscle no longer has the energy it needs to perform the functions you're asking it to do so, especially under increased demand. The second question was that she really liked to take long walks, and would she still be able to do this? Kind of a either or here. Yes, you could, but it would require some careful planning and monitoring. A long walk would likely require her skeletal muscles to use the more than the energy available in her bloodstream. There are some things that can be done as far as working with a nutritionist and timing certain types of foods prior to exercise, such as foods high in sugars and carbohydrates, so that the skeletal muscle through GLUT4 has the ability to uptake more glucose from the bloodstream during exercise. But also that she would need to monitor the way that she's feeling as the muscle is no longer able to uptake that glucose or that energy from her bloodstream, and since does not have the ability to break it down from this tissue itself. This is when she's going to start to get muscle fatigue and cramping. If this continues on during this long walk and for long periods of time, that muscle cramping can turn into permanent damage, and the skeletal tissue can start to break up and be released in the bloodstream. When these proteins and things that have been broken up from the damaged skeletal tissue reach the kidneys, it can cause renal failure. So she would need to very closely monitor how she's feeling during that long walk and really plan it out well in order to make it happen. The third question was, as a result of this deficiency, would she need to get up at night to maintain her glucose levels? I would tell her she would not need to be overly concerned about the rest of her blood glucose levels. The rest of her endocrine system is likely functioning just fine. This enzyme deficiency is limited to issues just with skeletal tissue. Her insulin regulation and all the other ways of regulating her blood glucose levels are unimpacted. There is a slight possibility of glucose levels dropping during strenuous exercise, like we talked about before, but those are pretty low. But definitely there's no need for her to get up in the middle of the night and eat glucose or food to get glucose, as her body still has the pathways intact to do that if needed. The final question was, does she need to worry about producing excess lactate during anaerobic exercise? The short answer here is no, since her body does not have the ability to break down glycogen into pyruvate, which turns into lactate and travels back to the liver. You're not going to see an increased amount of lactate being poured into the bloodstream in the manner you would see otherwise. Again, the issue here with pushing the body too hard would not be the production of lactate, but rather the breakdown of skeletal tissue, causing what we know cause rhabdomyolysis, which can then cause renal failure. So she would need to be very closely monitoring her symptoms, and for things such as a lot of muscle pain, dark urine, kidney pain, she would need to go get evaluated. So this covers case number 2. The next case I'm going to discuss is case number 4. This case talks about a healthy 2-month-old female presenting with jittery spells, eating every couple of hours. The laboratory tests are consistent and are showing hypoglycemia, and this hypoglycemia is unimproved by the administration of epinephrine. Child also shows an enlarged liver and blood glucose levels that do increase after breastfeeding, but do not. Apologies, I had to pause it real quick. But continuing, we also know that blood glucose levels return to normal after breastfeeding, but those glucose levels are not maintained during periods of fasting. We have 4 different options we could choose from as what is likely the diagnosis. So I'm going to go over the incorrect options, and then we'll discuss the correct, what I believe is the correct diagnosis. The first incorrect option is going to be option A, which is hereditary fructose intolerance. Hereditary fructose intolerance is an intolerance caused by a dysfunction in the aldose B enzyme. This enzyme is responsible for helping the body to break up fructose into less complex sugars to be used in the metabolic pathways. It is typically present in fruits and juices, and we typically see this come on when these types of foods are introduced into the baby's diet. And since the child is still being 100% breastfed, the likelihood of getting enough fructose to really cause any issues is pretty slim. And definitely, if it was a fructose intolerance, the baby would be able to maintain proper glucose levels just off of other sugars. So this doesn't really match up here. Some of these symptoms also include nausea, vomiting, diarrhea, and jaundice, and we are not seeing any of these reported by the mother. The second incorrect answer is going to be galactosemia. Galactosemia is a condition caused by the body's inability to process galactose, which is in fact a sugar that is present in breast milk. This again is a hereditary disorder caused by a dysfunction in an enzyme that doesn't allow the body to properly process galactose. Typically, these type of patients present with a few distinct symptoms or signs, one of them being cataracts, which we don't see here at all. Also lethargy and a decreased appetite. Clearly, since the child's getting up every couple of hours to eat, we're not having any appetite issues. Since blood glucose levels are also normal after eating, we're likely not dealing with an inability of the body to digest glucose itself or any type of fructose or galactose or anything like that. The final incorrect answer would be answer D, which is glucose 6-phosphate dehydrogenase deficiency. This enzyme known as G6PD is an enzyme used mainly in red blood cells to help in their metabolic pathways, but also provides red blood cells protection from a product of cellular respiration known as reactive oxygen species. And these species can damage the integrity of the red blood cell, which causes the red blood cell to be destroyed faster than the body can remake red blood cells. So that results in an overall anemic condition in the body. The symptoms here again are a little bit different than what we're seeing with this child. We see things such as pale skin, dark urine, that's from the red blood cells being broken down, weakness and lethargy. We're not really seeing that here. And again, since this is mainly has to do with red blood cells, we don't see blood glucose levels greatly impacted by G6PD deficiency. So this does not really fit here either. It looks like, given the symptoms described, this child likely is suffering from option C, which is glycogen storage disease. This is a whole group of orders, and depending on which enzymes are improperly functioning, can have a few different presentations. But the majority of these mutations result in the inability of the body to break down glycogen when it needs to do so. And in the case of this child, during periods of fasting, which is not being breastfed, a child's constantly growing and developing even when sleeping. So the body would need to access those glycogen storages to maintain proper blood sugar levels. This disease and the enzymes that are affected don't allow this baby's body to do that. We see a few of the symptoms line up here. For example, glycogen, a lot of it is stored in the liver. So if glycogen is able to be stored in the liver but not being broken down, we're going to get an enlarged liver, which we do see with this child. We're going to get the blood sugar issues during fasting periods. We also, this enzyme And these enzymes also work to break down lactate, and so we're going to see an increase in lactate levels, which we're also seeing in this child. And again, epinephrine, the administration of epinephrine will act on the pathway that stimulates glycogen breakdown, which would need these group of enzymes to do so. So administering epinephrine would actually have an adverse effect and would increase lactate levels rather than breaking down glycogen like we were hoping it would to increase blood sugar levels. So overall, it would appear that glycogen storage disease and the inability of this child to use glycogen during fasting periods is going to be the overall diagnosis. Thank you very much, and have a good afternoon.